Welcome to The Explainer. Today we're tackling a massive billion-dollar paradox right at the heart of modern football. I mean, how is it possible that the world's richest, most famous Premier League clubs can generate absolute fortunes, yet still bleed cash? It's a wild situation, so let's just dive right into it.
To hook you right off the bat, I want you to consider this staggering number, 73%. Look, English clubs recently generated a record-breaking 7 billion euros. That's a mind-boggling amount of money. But here's the catch. According to UEFA's own investment landscape report, those same English clubs contributed to 73% of European football's 1.2 billion euro net losses in 2023. Let that sink in for a second. They're literally making more money than Spain and Germany combined, but they're bleeding cash faster than anyone else. So what's going on here?
Here's our roadmap for today's explainer. We'll start with the revenue and cost paradox, look at the UEFA financial engine, compare Champions League versus Europa, dive into the non-matchday revolution, check out a case study on Liverpool's rise, and finish up with the cost of staying elite.
All right, part one, the revenue and cost paradox, and what we call the spending drag.
If you look at how modern football clubs actually make money, it boils down to 5 core revenue streams. You've got your matchday income, broadcasting rights, player transfers, commercial revenues, things like sponsorships, and other sources like prize money. But honestly, here is the absolute critical takeaway from all this. Generating mountains of cash across these pillars, it's completely meaningless if a club can't control what's going out the back door.
Because the truth is, these elite clubs are trapped in this aggressive, never-ending arms race for talent. We call this the expenditure drag. Basically, skyrocketing player salaries and just astronomical transfer fees are frequently outstripping those record-breaking revenues we just talked about. Clubs are essentially forced to prioritize short-term sporting success over long-term financial rationality. Actually, it's more like they spend everything they earn, and often way more, simply just to stay competitive.
Which brings us to part two, the UEFA financial engine and the massive prize money pot.
Just look at that £2.88 billion figure. Wow. That is the colossal prize pot UEFA is distributing every single season up until 2027. This continuous, frankly massive escalation in financial rewards underscores exactly why European qualification isn't just a badge of honor anymore for a Premier League club. No, it's an absolute, critical necessity for their balance sheet.
And, well, when you look at the cumulative earnings since 2010, the picture becomes crystal clear. We're looking at a super elite group hoarding hundreds of millions of pounds. Clubs like Manchester City, Liverpool, and Chelsea, they've pulled in just massive sums over the last 15 years. And the result of all this? Regular participation totally skews the financial advantage. It basically allows them to perpetuate their dominance at the very top of the hierarchy, investing super heavily in infrastructure and talent that smaller clubs literally just cannot afford.
Moving on to Section 3, Champions League versus Europa, and the huge financial chasm between them.
Now here is a really crucial point. Look at this stark contrast. Just showing up, literally just qualifying for the league phase of the Champions League, guarantees a club £16.2 million. Now compare that to a mere £3.6 million for the Europa League. That's a completely different financial universe before a single ball has even been kicked. And as you can imagine, this heavily impacts a club's ability to offset those rising operational costs we talked about earlier.
And this disparity, it continues right onto the pitch. In the Champions League, a single group stage victory is worth £1.8 million. In the Europa League, just $378,000. So a Champions League win is worth almost 5 times as much. When you aggregate these performance bonuses over a deep tournament run, you realize the exponential financial rewards of the Champions League are basically the primary driver of a top-tier club's wealth.
But wait, it gets crazier. UEFA's new value pillar makes this inequality even more entrenched. This metric guarantees tens of millions in income based purely on national TV markets, combined with a club's 10-year historical UEFA coefficient, which, if you don't know, is basically just a ranking of their past European performance. It's a system that literally pays you just for historically being a massive, successful club. It locks in guaranteed revenues to offset those massive wage bills, entirely regardless of how you actually play in the current season.
All right, part 4, the non-matchday revolution. What happens beyond the pitch?
So as we've seen, relying solely on sporting success is incredibly risky. I mean, a couple of bad injuries, one off-season, and boom, those UEFA millions just vanish.
So to counter this, clubs have activated a second massive financial engine. Industry experts like Deloitte's Tim Bridge note this really pivotal shift in modern business models. Stadiums are being completely transformed. They're no longer just patches of grass used once a fortnight for a match. They are being engineered into daily commercial hubs and year-round entertainment destinations. By integrating these additional non-football business units, think massive stadium concerts, on-site hotels, conference centers, even physiotherapy services, clubs create stable, fixed income streams. And why does this matter so much? Well, football revenue is highly volatile. You can't predict a losing streak. But hotel bookings and concert ticket sales, those are way more predictable. This fixed income acts as a vital stabilizing catalyst. It safeguards the balance sheet against the brutal financial hit of a poor sporting season.
Let's look at a real-world example in Section 5, a case study on Liverpool's rise and their two-pillar strategy. In the 2024-2025 Deloitte Football Money League, something wild happened. For the first time in the report's 29-year history, not a single Premier League club made the top 4 globally. Real Madrid took the top spot. However, Liverpool actually surged to 5th globally. They became the absolute highest-earning Premier League club with €836 million in revenue, impressively leapfrogging both Manchester City and Manchester United.
And this brilliantly illustrates the exact point we're making. Liverpool's financial surge wasn't just about what happened on the football pitch. According to Deloitte, a huge factor was a 7% increase in commercial revenues, fueled directly by turning Anfield into a massive global tour stop. By hosting pop megastars like Taylor Swift, Dua Lipa, and Bruce Springsteen, they broadened their revenue streams significantly. So yeah, as it turns out, Swifties might be just as crucial to a modern club's balance sheet as the actual football fans.
Finally, Section 6, the cost of staying elite in the virtuous cycle.
When you step back and put this all together, you really start to see a virtuous cycle of dominance for the elite. It goes like this. Deep European runs yield exponential financial rewards. Those rewards allow for massive investments in top-tier talent and infrastructure. And that, in turn, heavily entrenches future sporting success. It creates this massive, almost impenetrable barrier to entry for aspiring smaller clubs. I mean, they simply don't have a Taylor Swift concert or a guaranteed Champions League value puller payout to fund their transfer budgets.
But here is the ultimate irony of this entire system, perfectly captured by our sources. Increased revenue doesn't actually make these clubs financially healthier or more profitable. Crazy, right? Instead, it simply inflates player transfer fees and wages across the board. The more they earn from UEFA and mega concerts, the more they spend on this talent arms race. It forces them to constantly chase the next massive payout just to survive the very ecosystem they created. Which leaves us with a pretty vital question to ponder. As these super elite clubs transform from traditional football teams into year-round entertainment empires heavily subsidized by guaranteed UEFA millions, has the business of football outgrown the sport itself? And maybe more importantly, is the competitive balance we all love permanently broken? Well, that's something to think about. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer. I really hope this helped unpack the billion-dollar paradox of modern football. Catch you next time.